Hello and welcome to the Father and Son Formula One podcast. This is the edition following the US Grand Prix that was held at the Circuit of Americas in Austin. I'm the father in the title, Graham Miller, and this is my son, Toby.
Hello.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about, really, haven't we?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was a sprint weekend as well, so there's
You know what?
twice as much, really.
I started off really not liking sprint weekends, probably because I'm old and it's change.
Yeah.
But I think the really key thing now with the way the format is that literally there's one free practice session.
Yeah.
And then it's all action.
Especially with a resurfaced track like Kota, it was pure carnage the whole way.
Yeah, because nobody... Also, you know what I noticed over the whole weekend? And I'm not actually pointing the finger at Mercedes here either.
Mm-hmm.
Was the track really twitchy? Like the whole... There were so many corners where it seemed like none of the drivers, with exceptions, could really get a handle on them. Like they go in sometimes and fly around like they're on rails. And then literally the next lap, they'd be like full opposite lock, sliding, gathering it up, trying to keep in track limits.
Yeah. I think it is... It was quite unpredictable. Quite a lot of drivers were spinning out. I mean, Albon went round at one point. Both Russell and Hamilton did have lockups and issues, and obviously Piastri lost out on track limits at least once.
Yeah, and I was like watching some of the onboards, and it wasn't like, here's the corner, turn in, hit the apex, straighten up. They were wrestling.
Yeah, there are lots of corrections on the wheel.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, they kept showing the big flags that they were flying, and it did look quite windy as well, which I know upsets the aero a bit.
Yeah, I quite like that enormous flag at turn one because it's so big, because it's America, it's Texas even, everything's bigger in Texas. But because it's so big, even when it's extremely windy, it kind of flaps in slow motion.
Yeah.
So it looks really cinematic and dramatic, even when they're at full speed on the track. It's really weird, but I quite enjoyed it.
Oh no, I mean, and also it gives you you're not kind of squinting and going, oh, those pennants on the top of the grandstand, are they moving? You're like, yeah, it's windy.
It's windy, yeah. Russell did a lap years ago, where he actually commentated while he was in the car doing the lap.
Yeah. Which
I think they should do more. And he pointed out that they do use the flags on the grandstands to see where the wind was blowing. And he's like, yeah, just check out that Ferrari flag up there. And on the video, it's a tiny little speck of red that's kind of waving. You're like, how could he actually see that and then make the judgment in the moment where the wind is going in a fraction of a second? It's ridiculous.
There's a story about Fangio, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Where he came round a corner, like the last corner onto the start-finish straight, and then he started slowing before the accident that would have pretty much killed him.
Yeah.
And the commentators spotted this, and they interviewed him afterwards, and they said, what happened? Because as you came out of that corner, you were offline and slowing.
Yeah.
And he said, oh yeah, I came around the corner and looked at the grandstands, and nobody was looking at me. They were all looking further down the track. Which
is also kind of classic, top F1 driver, I'm the main attraction, so they should be looking at me, so something's wrong. I'm not the centre of attention.
It's probably even just that every lap he's done, he's kind of come around that corner and everybody's been watching him because he's the number one driver.
Yeah, they stand up and kind of go, wow, look. But then it's kind of... He probably didn't even think they should be looking at me. He probably just subconsciously looked and went, that's different.
Yeah,
so something's happened ahead. So, slow down.
Yeah, everybody didn't have their mobile phones out recording him as he went past.
Yeah, well... yeah, they're big, film cameras.
Yeah, I'm joking, of course, because Fangio was 50s and...
50s? Yeah, I think 50s. I think he packed it in by the 60s.
Before we get into the weekend, I missed two really bizarre statistics. One from last week.
Yes.
Going into this weekend, everybody down to George Russell could have won the championship. Mathematically. If Max Verstappen goes, I'm fed up, and goes off to a Caribbean island somewhere and doesn't bother.
Which honestly is not actually out of the question at this point, I feel like.
No, but that means every one of the 7 drivers who've won a race this season could have won the championship. Which is kind of a nice kind of statistic, really.
Also, there's 7 winners this year, which is quite...
Yeah, that's quite a lot, really, isn't it?
I think after that last year, everybody was expecting it to be super kind of boring.
A walkover.
And it was at first, and then since, what was it? Spain was the last race Max won that wasn't a sprint.
Yeah, I think the first 10 races, Max won 7 of them.
Yeah. The only outliers were Sainz, Leclerc then at Monaco, and Norris at Miami.
Yeah.
And even that was better than it was last year.
Well, yeah, and again, Sainz is the only one who won last year who wasn't in a Red Bull.
Yeah, there's something like a 30-race stretch where the only winners are Red Bulls and Sainz, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Quite ridiculous.
Anyway, yeah, free practice 1. What happened?
Not that much. Lots of spins, I think. Everybody out
Yeah.
on track all at once because it was one practice session to get rubbered in on the new track.
Yeah,
Ferrari's fastest, which ended up being actually quite prophetic.
yeah, I saw that and I thought, oh, they really are quick, aren't they?
Yeah, 2/10 on Verstappen and Norris, who then it was very tight with like Piastri and the Mercedes is a bit further back.
I remember it getting quite exciting towards the end because they suddenly started doing low downforce fast runs.
Yeah, low fuel quali sim.
Yeah, low fuel, not low downforce. And that's when you really got a feel for, because the first like 40-45 minutes, it was kind of like who's practicing what, what are their programs. But towards the end, it got exciting.
Yeah. Did anyone actually crash?
I don't remember it being red flagged or any crashes or anything.
No. And then sprint qualifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so firstly of all, Piastri got a lap deleted and ended up outside the top 10. Which was kind of just unfortunate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we'll talk about a lot when we get onto the main race is that Austin is a track that is used for track days and it's used for MotoGP.
Yeah.
So both of those are much more profitable if they have big tarmac runoff areas and low curbs.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a track day and a member of public stuffs it up, which to be honest is a track day, that's what they're there for.
Yeah, better do that than on the road, I guess.
And then they beach it into the gravel, then you cancel the track day, you get the tractors out, you lift the car out, it's a lot of expense.
It's damage to the car maybe as well.
Yeah, well, it's a track day, it's their problem.
Yeah, but it's you're going to get people returning more if they don't absolutely destroy their car every time they lock up and go off.
Yeah, and likewise for the motorbike guys, obviously if they're sliding on their back at like over 100 miles an hour, which is kind of the sport, they don't want to be hitting high sausage curbs or patches of gravel or
so
anything that could kind of launch them, as it were.
Yeah, it's because you can kind of it gets dug into the gravel and flips around and stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's why we saw quite a lot of spins and quite a lot of kind of minor spins in a weird way. I can't remember when at the weekend, but I'm sure Hamilton did a complete 360 and just gathered it up and carried on.
Yeah, I think so as well.
But I think, he carried on, but then he came back to the pits and going, I think those tyres have had it now.
Yeah, and I think, they have the ability to push a bit further and kind of test the limits a bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they were at Singapore, they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, or Monaco.
Yeah.
And then in SQ2, it was interrupted because... Did somebody crash?
I think you're thinking of 3 when Russell stuffed it into the barriers.
Was that real qualifying? He did that.
Yeah.
So in sprint qualifying. Oh yeah. So
real SQ3. Oh, was that real qualifying?
Yeah, real Q.
That's Q3, not SQ. I'm getting my qualifyings.
In SQ3,
yeah,
Hamilton and Russell went out early before everybody else.
Yeah.
Russell ended up second, and then nobody beat him.
Yeah.
I think, what's his face? Verstappen got, 100th of a second on him?
Yeah.
And then nobody else was even really that close, to be honest. But I've also got 3 in SQ2, Stroll, Alonso and Lawson all DNF'd, but I think they just didn't set a lap.
Yeah, it was. I mean, sprint qualifying is very, very difficult.
Lawson had a 60-place penalty, so they just didn't bother.
Now that's the real qualifying, not the sprint qualifying.
Well, why did Lawson DNF SQ2 then? I don't remember why they didn't.
See, again, I think they just slid out and didn't get a
timed lap. Yeah, probably. And then, so Verstappen on sprint pole. Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Sainz, pretty standard. Haas were very fast, actually.
Yeah, because Lewis Hamilton actually split the Haas's, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I think this is honestly like one of Hamilton's worst weekends in years.
Yeah.
In terms of just bad luck in one sense, but also just the actual kind of feeling in the car clearly just wasn't there because he just wasn't happy.
I think the thing is the car is not reliable. It's not consistent. And he's really used to getting a consistent car and then pushing it beyond its limits and then catching it.
Well, clearly somewhere like Austin, that doesn't quite happen as well because the track's got very variable limits as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it just compounded that.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the older drivers are struggling. I mean, Alonso, every time we saw him, was getting overtaken by somebody all weekend.
Yeah, and Bottas, well, he's in a Sauber, so that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, Hulkenberg was 6th in a Haas.
Yeah, I mean, that's a brilliant home race for them.
But you're right, actually, the sprint quali top 5 was all this kind of, quotes, new gen. None of them were even racing when the new regs came in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly all, I would say, under 26 looking at it. Or maybe Sainz is a bit older.
Sainz is a bit older. I think Verstappen, Sainz and Verstappen debuted in the same year.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen's like 28, 29 now, isn't he?
He's 27, is Verstappen.
Yeah, but yeah, they are the next generation, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Russell, Leclerc, Norris were all like 2018, 19. Which is it's what we wanted, is when they debuted, the three of them, Russell, Norris and Albon, everybody said this is going to be F1 in 10 years, it's going to be these guys dominating.
Yeah.
And it kind of was.
Kind of is, yeah.
But with, Hamilton and Alonso hanging on just about.
Yeah, I don't think anybody predicted, like, drivers going past basically 35, 36.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a new thing with, like, back in the kind of, I guess, 80s and 90s, the cars were so physical and fast, and there was such a big calendar, but the kind of health programs weren't there yet, so drivers were retiring in their early 30s because they couldn't hang on to it anymore.
Yeah, and I think, as well, mental health and, like, sports psychologists and, like, nutritionists, like, say, physios.
I can imagine Hamilton, when he started, was probably like, I want to be here for as long as physically possible, so I'm going to do what I need to with physios and mental therapists and stuff.
Yeah, and he's vegan as well, isn't he?
I think he says plant-based.
Yeah, that's vegan.
I don't know what the difference is, yeah.
That's code for vegan, without scaring people.
I wonder if there's any difference. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. But yeah.
And also, I mean, it's not just motor racing. I know that snooker's still got the class of 92. Still, actually, some of them are still playing and winning.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we've got a very busy race weekend.
Yeah.
The sprint was back to the good old days, or the bad old days, depending who you support.
Mm-hmm.
Max qualified on pole, stayed in the lead, won the race. Didn't really get challenged that much by anybody. No,
it was Norris, to be fair to him, qualified in 4th and actually did he not like weasel his way up to 2nd immediately?
Third. Oh yeah.
Like on the opening lap he got past the Ferraris who were fighting.
Yeah.
And then ended up falling back into Sainz eventually, but he was trying to hang on to Verstappen, he just didn't have the pace. Yeah,
and I think his tyres went off at the end because there was a lot of scrapping in those first 4 or 5 positions. Certainly the top 4 were scrapping a lot, and I think they just wore their tyres out.
I think clean air is very valuable at COTA because of that kind of twisting S section in the middle.
Yeah.
That's where they really... And what's worse is that goes right before a massive straight. So you need to hang on But in the dirty air, heating your tyres up is going to shred them.
Yeah, and I think there was something weird about the tyre temperatures as well. I think, was the sprint a bit cooler than they expected, or the qualifying was a bit hotter? It was...
Well, I think they just didn't have that many examples of, like, temperature.
Yeah, like I said, it was quite... I said a twitchy track, you said unpredictable, but yeah.
Same thing, yeah. It's just, they didn't know what temperature it was. Well, then, you know, from one session to the next, the temperature was different to how it had been all weekend, because it was just fewer sessions to practice.
So yeah, back to, like, you know, 2023 for the sprint, really. People fighting behind Verstappen for the rest of the points.
Mm-hmm. Hamilton did get past the Haas, but double points for Haas.
Yeah.
In the top 8, it was actually Red Bull, 1 McLaren because of Piastri. So 1 Red Bull, 1 McLaren, 2 Ferrari, 2 Mercedes, 2 Haas.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the list here. Where on earth did Piastri end up?
10th. He was chasing after Perez in 9th.
Yeah.
So they were both chasing down Magnussen and Hulkenberg, actually, and couldn't do it.
Yeah, and they were like, well, Perez was nearly 30 seconds off the pace, which is over 19 laps. Is quite serious.
Yeah. You could play devil's advocate and say he was held up by the Haas. But
yeah.
Again, call back to like 2018-19. The top 6 drivers, top 3 teams would have been slicing through the midfield back in the day, and now it's so close in pace.
Well, they were talking about F1.5, weren't they?
Yeah, where it's like
the rest of the teams.
Verstappen's qualified in 18th. By the first pit stops, he'd be like 5th.
Yeah. Apparently, Verstappen is on course, and it's not looking likely to change, to have the biggest ever offset to his teammate in like F1 history.
He's already got 204 points.
And like, I'm going to say 7, 8 places?
Yeah, Perez is 8th.
Yeah.
He's behind Russell now. He's 88 points ahead of Alonso, which is fairly safe.
And he's 17 behind Russell. So that is going to be the biggest offset.
Yes.
Right. So that's the sprint. Genuine, real racing qualifying.
Yeah, normal quality. And I actually, this was late at night, wasn't it? It was like 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Fairly... Oh yeah, Hamilton... How did Hamilton end up 19th? Was that just pure pace, or did he spin?
I think he had a lap time deleted. And he had... Oh, it didn't quite spin, but again, he just lost control of the car. He had one lap where I think in Sector 2 he lost 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, that was it. I think it was just a lock-up. Massively slowed him down and kind of put him off. So it was kind of just the track again and the car.
And then he came round with he crossed the line with 1 minute 15.
Yeah, and he couldn't get another lap in.
Well, even the hot laps are running in the 130 somethings.
133s, 2s.
So like a recharge lap to have another go. Even if he was fueled for it and the tyres were good for it, it just wasn't going to happen. And I'm sure I saw him qualify like 17th or 18th and then have a lap time deleted and drop down to 19th.
Yeah, I think so. But I think they were talking about doing a pit lane start for Hamilton because you might as well. But then Russell binned it and they had to pit lane start him, and I don't think they wanted to do both at once.
Well, I don't think it's not that they wanted to. I think that they had mechanics, and they've only got a finite number of mechanics.
Yeah, so they had to get everybody to fix Russell's car.
Yeah, what's really interesting is... Okay, so Russell binned it in the very end of qualifying 3, which stopped Verstappen, who was looking like he was going to beat Lando Norris's pole-setting lap.
Yeah, he was purple first sector?
And second.
Yeah, he was on a good one.
But when Russell binned it, he damaged the brand new floor they brought out for Austin. And they rebuilt the car with a floor that went all the way back to Canada like 10 races ago.
Oof.
But it actually worked better.
Yeah, well, it's the Mercedes problem, isn't it? It's just, what does this car do?
You know, if we put this part on it, how does it change? And they have no clue.
Yeah.
they've got a completely unpredictable beast.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit going out of order. Dropped out were Albon and Colapinto, fair enough.
Yeah,
Bottas
a
and...
little surprising. They've been on a good run lately, but...
Yeah, no, 16th and 17th. Bottas and Zhou, yeah, again. And Hamilton, which is a bit of a head-scratcher.
Yeah.
Who are we losing?
Then Q2...
Lawson didn't bother because he's going from the back.
Yeah, Lawson didn't bother. Stroll, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, fairly standard.
Yeah, Perez just about scraped into Q.
Yeah, but then I think he
no, he was in by half a second. That's believable.
He didn't set a lap time. Bear in mind as well, this is the final qualifying order, so sometimes the times they set in Q2, the gap looks bigger because they might have set like a really good time in Q2 and then a bad time in Q3, so it changes it around, but I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, looking at this, Perez could have gone up to about 6th or 7th.
33-0 would have been good enough for 8th, I think, just ahead of Alonso.
Or he could have, scrubbed off a couple of thousandths and got ahead of Gasly. Why didn't he? Was it just...
I think it was Russell. I just don't think he set a lap time, or he got one deleted.
Probably, yeah. Anyway, Lando Norris set one of those kind of God-level laps, didn't he?
Yeah, really good.
Where he just hooked everything up and it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean...
But still only 0.03 ahead of Verstappen, who's obviously doing the same sort of thing.
But that was Verstappen's initial lap. Kind of banker lap, not his push lap. But he was, 0.6 up on his teammate Piastri. And, like a second ahead of Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, that really was. And then we had the very final flag drop, everything on the line for the pole position lap, and Russell binned it really quite spectacularly. We've been seeing spins all weekend, but he actually went straight into the barriers.
It had been kind of threatening to happen.
Yeah.
Where it was like, it's going to get worse at some point.
And he did. He kind of skipped over the gravel like they do sometimes.
Yeah, and properly shunted into the, what's it called, the barrier.
Yeah.
There was a good result for Gasly and Magnussen up in the top 10.
Yeah, they're really kind of showing
actually, qualifying 7th in an Alpine is quite good.
That's brilliant, actually. Has Gasly got a drive next year?
I think he is confirmed at Alpine, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's like kind of their... Because Ocon's going off to Haas.
Yeah.
And Gasly's kind of their main French. And he's had quite a bit of experience now. He's going to show Doohan how to do it.
Oh, yeah. So, Russell had a pit lane start. Lawson had a 60 place drop.
Yeah, which ended up just being back of the grid. Zhou got a 5-place penalty, so naturally he went from qualifying 19th to qualifying 18th, because somehow that always happens to Zhou. He kind of plays with the...
Hamilton went up to 17th.
I think Stake just realised that they're going to move up places regardless, so they just take new components just to see if it works, because they're kind of struggling. But it is quite funny.
And that brought Tsunoda into the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the race.
Yeah, so Verstappen and Norris fought amongst themselves on the start.
Yep.
And that basically let Leclerc through the open door.
Yeah, well, the open door was, once again, Norris in the first corner.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's yet another Norris first lap mistake, basically.
There were endless replays of it, but he kind of came down the pitch straight, and he kind of starts to move left to chop Verstappen off, and then kind of stops. And you kind of think any of the champions like Hamilton, Vettel, Schumi would have just said to Verstappen, concrete wall or behind me, what do you want?
Yeah.
Which is their right, they're in front, they've got pole position.
That's ultimately kind of what Hamilton started doing in 2021 with Verstappen. He just started holding his line when Verstappen started like edging him out, and that's what happened in like Britain and in Italy. It was just Hamilton not yielding.
And to be fair, in I'm gonna say Hungary this year.
Yeah, same thing. Hamilton knows that he just can't kind of let Verstappen have any kind of quarter at all.
Well, Verstappen bullies his way through, basically.
Yeah.
I heard a brilliant phrase today. Not today, but when I was reading about this race. It's bin it or win it. That's how Verstappen drives.
Yeah. So I'm just rewatching the start.
Yeah.
Leclerc gets up into first. Verstappen is in second, and then Sainz also gets past Norris. So Norris really loses out.
Yeah, it goes down to fourth.
Yeah. Yeah, and then...
I mean,
the Ferraris were just faster.
I know we're going to talk about lap 52, but that move by Verstappen, where he goes right to the edge and pushes Norris out, every other lap that's been a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
And I think Verstappen calculated it. And I think he went, it's the first corner, I reckon the stewards will let me get away with it. Because they always go, first corner, opening lap, let them race.
Yeah.
I think he is a very thinking driver. I don't think he gets a kind of red mist. I think he works out all the angles.
He works out exactly to the degree to which he can push the rules.
Yeah.
And also, he did lose a place to Leclerc as well.
Yeah.
So he started second and ended up second. He just overtook Norris and then got done by Leclerc. So maybe the stewards were like, well, he didn't really gain anything from it.
But then you've got to look at the bigger picture. He got his main championship rival behind him.
Yeah.
He actually achieved number one objective in the first corner.
Yeah. It was, yeah. But, I mean, there was other stuff that happened on the first lap. Someone got spun around, I think Albon.
Yeah, Albon tagged one of the Alpines. I'm looking at the list to see where he was near.
You know, the orange
Ocon,
Alpine.
probably. I think it was Ocon, because they're quite close on the track.
I'm trying to see a replay. Where is Albon? Just watching. Or is it actually an Alpine got squeezed, I think, between a Williams and Aston Martin. Again, it's a very weird corner, turn one at Kota. It's kind of wide and uphill, so it ends up being a lot of strange lines and kind of fans out in a way and then squeezes back in.
Yep.
So then lap 1, Hamilton spins off.
That was about lap 2 or 3.
The F1 says he did 1 lap.
I think he completed 1 lap. Was in the middle of his second lap. So he never crossed the line for a second time.
Okay, so he did 1 lap and then he spun out into the gravel, just beached it, and that was it.
Toto Wolff has said 100% not Lewis's fault. George Russell has said that. Lewis has said it wasn't a push lap. I was just settling in, getting on with my day, basically finding the track. Yeah. Finding the feel of the track, just really getting ready to see who he could overtake.
Yeah, because the other thing is, he made up 5 positions in that first lap.
Yeah.
He was 12th, having started 19th, which is kind of vintage Hamilton, really.
No, I think he actually started 17th when everything all shook out.
He started 17th, but he still was 12th. The graphic did say Hamilton up 5 briefly, which was like unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like I say, vintage Hamilton, and then something very odd happened.
Even Martin Brundle, they looked at the replay and Brundle said, he just turned it normally and it went like that.
Yeah. I know we're going to talk about, because there was the incident between Norris and Verstappen, but it's such a strong result from Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know what I found really interesting coming up to the first round of pit stops?
Mm-hmm.
This is one radio message that nobody really commented on, but I think is really key.
Yes.
They were talking about pit stops and what kind of pace Charles Leclerc had, and he was talking to his race engineer.
Yeah.
But did you hear what he said?
He said he wanted Plan B?
No, he said, when you bring me out after the pit stops, I don't want any pressure.
Okay.
Who was going to come out in number 2?
Sainz, because they were going to undercut Verstappen with Sainz. That was the plan. And who did it? So you think he said, don't let him get too close?
Yeah. Because in the sprint, Sainz was all over him and they were wheel to wheel and bouncing, and
Yeah.
he knew he had the win in his pocket if he kept it clean and straight. But what can Ferrari do if Sainz comes out within a second of Leclerc? What can Ferrari do to stop Sainz challenging him for the lead?
Yeah. Well,
There's no
really.
levers. There's no levers to pull. There's nothing. They can't threaten him. They can't.
So that was his coded way of saying, give me a big gap to Sainz behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a really odd kind of teammate relationship if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I don't even think you can blame Sainz for it because he knows he's going to Williams.
Yeah.
He knows it's going to be years before he gets to the front of a race again. Even if they follow the McLaren model. It might be the new regs in 26, he might be at the front, but it's a very if. So these last 6 races, as it was then, are his chance to add to his race wins tally.
Yeah.
And he's not gonna, they could get Vasseur on the phone to him and say, yeah, leave Leclerc alone, and he would go, nope.
That'd probably just speed him up, to be honest.
Yeah.
They didn't, obviously not going to tell Sainz that Leclerc told him to give a gap. They're just going to say, right, we pit you now. You're ahead of Verstappen. That's who you're racing today.
Yeah, we'll do the undercut on Verstappen. That's fine.
Yeah, we get the 1-2. And he's like, oh, yeah, 1-2. That's good.
But I thought, yeah, that was just one message that came through and nobody picked up on it, really.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
I don't think it's any bad blood between Sainz and Leclerc. I think it just is the way it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Leclerc doesn't want to be looking in his mirrors, slowing down by defending, and also potentially, knocking wheels and crashing out.
And, ragging his tyres as well.
Yeah. He just wanted to cruise.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
Sainz did close up to him, and then he just extended out again. So I think he just held him at arm's length.
Yeah.
Which is quite good.
And it's fair enough, Leclerc, where on earth did he qualify? 4th?
Something like that. I mean, yeah, he qualified behind Sainz, actually.
He did an amazing job to go
4th to 1st in literally one corner.
Yep.
That's kind of like you dream about that as a racing driver.
Yeah. And then, obviously, he kept Verstappen at bay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, him and he earned it, definitely. And he just wanted to keep it.
Well, Sainz got done by Verstappen, or he didn't get past him, so he had to undercut him to get past.
Yeah.
So he couldn't really challenge for the victory.
And they kept the McLarens out long.
Yes.
Because they were gentler on their tyres. I thought for a minute that they were going to do a 1-stop and everybody around them would 2-stop, but...
I think the tyre deg was too high.
Yeah.
But what was the... Did anyone do a 1-stop? Did Russell do a 1-stop in the
They all
end?
did a 1-stop, I think.
I thought they all did a 2-stop.
No, I think they all 1-stopped.
Mostly a 2-stop. So Magnussen... So Albon, Zhou, Magnussen and Ocon did 2 stops. The kind of back markers, nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Russell stopped on lap 40 because he started on the hards.
Yeah, but everybody else 1-stopped it.
Yeah. And Colapinto apparently also started on the hards, and he actually asked for it specifically. He said he kind of requested it from the team.
He really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it worked because he came 10th.
Shall we talk about the end of the race with Norris and Verstappen then?
Yeah. Well, first, let's talk about George Russell.
I mean,
he got a penalty for pushing Bottas wide.
Yeah.
And for pushing him wide to keep the position.
Yeah.
In order to save his, overtake.
Yeah.
And so they gave him a 5-second penalty for forcing another driver wide, which they rarely do, to be honest.
Yeah, and they gave another one to somebody else. I think it was down Albon on one of the...
Is it Gasly? I thought I heard Gasly's name involved with a penalty. Is there a... Sonoda received Gasly and Norris received a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Tsunoda got a 5-second penalty for forcing a driver off the track.
Yeah.
I think that was after the pit stops, which is why it's mentioned on the race result.
Okay.
But yeah.
Now, I've looked this up.
Yes.
There is a difference between what Russell did and what Verstappen did.
Yes.
Russell did it in attack. Russell started off behind, went to the inside of the corner, pushed the other driver off the track, and got an advantage.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But because Verstappen was already ahead, he can technically do exactly the same thing and not get a penalty.
Yes.
Which, given what we said about Verstappen being a really thinky driver, he almost certainly knew that in advance.
Yeah. And after the race,
Yeah.
he said, well, you can't overtake off the track and gain a place, said Verstappen.
Yeah.
And he said, I know because I've been bitten by that before. Because back in 2017, I want to say, he overtook Raikkonen off the track.
Yeah.
And he got a penalty for it and lost a podium. And so he very clearly remembers that and goes, oh, I can make him overtake off the track.
Yeah.
He'll lose his place. But I've seen pictures as well. Verstappen is nowhere near making the corner, which is the thing. And it's the thing he did it to Hamilton in Brazil in 2021. He just hilariously misses the corner just to prevent the other driver from even, getting close.
A lot of the ex-driver commentators like Button and Brundle have pointed out that what he does is Norris goes to the outside.
Yeah,
he knows Norris is going around the outside, so he lifts off the brake.
Yeah.
He knows he's not going to make the corner inside track limits.
Yeah.
But what that does is that speeds his car up, so when you get to the apex, which is what the stewards care about, he's in front.
Yeah.
So he's got the corner, as it were. And then he doesn't really care what happens after that, because he's got the corner, and whatever the other driver does, they'll either have to crash into him, which is probably them causing a collision because they're behind, or they'll have to go off the track to overtake him, which again is illegal.
Yeah.
So both of them, it's a loophole.
It is. And everybody, like Martin Brundle was saying, with the rules at that corner, you kind of can't overtake. Because either you go to the outside, driver forces you out, you get a penalty for being off the track and overtaking them.
Yeah.
So you can, lift off and you can kind of lift off and back out and not get the place. Or you could send it up the inside, push them out to get past them, and then you get a penalty for forcing them off track.
Yeah.
So he said, if you're a very canny driver like Max, can you actually exploit that?
Yeah. And I think the stewards knew that as well. Because the actual reasoning, the proper written report from the stewards had two really interesting things in it.
Yeah.
They said the usual penalty for this is 10 seconds. But we're giving car 4, Norris, a 5-second penalty because the other car 1, Max, left the track.
Yeah.
So that's the steward saying, we know it's a dirty trick. We know it's a loophole. What can we do? And the other thing they said was, this won't count as one of Norris's strikes for leaving the track.
Right, so he doesn't get that. Right, that's why Red Bull said he's on 4 strikes for track limits, he'll get 5 seconds anyway.
Yeah.
And McLaren said, you're on 3 strikes, don't do any more.
Yeah.
Because it didn't count towards his total strikes.
Yeah. So that's definitely the steward saying, we know it's a loophole. We know it's unfair.
Yeah.
We're helping you as much as we can.
But it does make you kind of think, is it even possible to overtake Verstappen?
No.
Because, look at Austria. Again, it was the same thing. It was lap after lap after lap. Norris got up to him, had more pace, got close, and then just was forced off track, and they ended up banging wheels because Norris just refused to yield again.
Yeah. And the problem he's got now is he's 57 points behind now. But with that kind of difference, to be honest, if Max had an accident every race from now until Abu Dhabi, if they both wiped out, he'd win the championship by 50 points.
Yeah.
He can, well, I know it sounds like a weird thing, he can afford the accidents.
Yeah.
He can afford to crash.
Yeah.
Norris can't. Norris must finish these races and in a high points position.
Yeah.
So Norris doesn't even have the option of going, I know it's Max, I will not yield, I will hold my line.
Yeah, which just gives Verstappen that innate unfair advantage.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same again with Hungary this year.
Mm.
And Lewis knows him of old, so Lewis is just like, nope, not giving up.
And also, Lewis isn't competing for the championship. They were 6th and 7th. No, wait, where's Hungary? They were 5th and Hamilton ended up 3rd, so Verstappen was struggling on pace.
Yeah.
Hamilton was not going to win that race because it was a McLaren 1-2 domination.
Yeah.
So he was just like, whatever, crash into me, see if I can.
Yeah, but we know from 2021 that if the championship was on the line, they would do exactly the same.
Yeah, because there's no... Well, I think back then as well it was tighter.
Yeah.
So I think Hamilton might have been leading at that point. So Hamilton was saying basically, if we crash, I gain a race on you.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Yeah. It does make it very, very difficult. I think the rule change is coming.
Yes. Where are we next? Mexico's got quite big tarmac runoffs as well.
Yeah.
Or is it grass?
I
think it's grass.
The other thing that Max said in one of the post-race interviews, he actually pointed out that it's a MotoGP track as well, and has big runoff areas.
Yeah.
Now, he's not come off the race and looked it up. He's thought about that before the race.
Yeah. Well, he's looked at the runoffs.
Yeah, I think he watches MotoGP as well, so...
Well, I mean, he basically lives and breathes racing and nothing else.
Of all sorts, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was the right decision. I think, reading between the lines, I think they would have loved to have not penalised Norris for it in the steward's room.
Yeah.
Because they gave him the smallest penalty and they didn't add a strike. I think that's them saying, we don't want to do this, but the rules is the rules.
Yeah.
And I think Norris did the right thing staying ahead, because he'd been following him for 7 or 8 laps without getting past, like in Hungary.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, he should have done that move 5 laps earlier, because he made up like 4 seconds in the last 5 laps.
Yeah.
The pace advantage was there. So I think in the future you're going to see Norris just going for it early, soaking up the 5-second penalty and going, yeah, well, do it, foot down, see you later.
Yeah.
Maybe even then deploying Piastri to hassle Verstappen as well.
Well, they were kind of caught with Piastri because they were saying speed up because they thought Verstappen might get a 5-second penalty for going off the track.
Yeah.
As soon as Norris got his penalty, they told him to back off so that he didn't accidentally get Norris, and he ended up 1 second ahead of Piastri. So Piastri kind of did his part perfectly.
Yeah.
He didn't interfere with Norris's points.
No. Anyway, I mean, that's what happened. I think it's a shame that everybody talked about it when Ferrari had an absolutely stellar race.
As Ferrari's best race in years in terms of...
Probably.
I mean, they had the pace, and they had a really amazing strategy as well. I mean, they just perfectly undercut Verstappen, and Verstappen couldn't do anything about it.
No. And they picked up 12 points off the sprint.
Let me see. Yeah? Because Sainz came second again, so...
They actually got 45 points out of the weekend, I think.
Yeah. And now, Ferrari are only 14 points off of Red Bull in the Constructors, and only 54 off McLaren.
Yeah, 8 points off Red Bull.
Are they?
Yeah.
Have I got my... Oh, God, have I got my stuff wrong? My spreadsheet might be wrong. Let me just look at the Constructor standings. Oh, yeah.
They're 8 points off and they're 48 off
I'm
McLaren.
missing 6 points. Hang on. Behrman in Saudi.
Oh,
For some reason, Behrman in Saudi is not being counted in my...
Ah. Right, while you're sorting out your spreadsheet...
It's just silly.
Also, honourable mentions. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda must be nervous and polishing his CV. Liam Lawson technically made up 70 places.
Yeah. Well, he did actually make up like 10.
Yeah.
Which is damn impressive.
From 19 into the points, while Tsunoda finished 14th.
Having qualified 10th? He was in the top 10, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
He started 10th.
As they say, they don't give out points on a Saturday. No, he
qualified 11th, but Russell had a pit
10th.
lane, so he started 10th and ended 14th. Lawson started 19th and ended 9th.
Yeah, which again, I think this is going to be another new generation moment, like when Russell and Leclerc and Piastri and people arrived.
Yeah, so Colapinto is obviously awesome.
Yeah,
we've just seen Lawson. We'll see how Antonelli is as well.
Apparently,
and Behrman.
Apparently, James Vowles is all over the management at Kick Sauber.
He wants to get Colapinto into that seat.
He's just like, this guy needs a permanent race seat. I mean,
yeah, you gotta respect that from James Vowles. He does take care of his own drivers.
Yeah,
which also is what Toto Wolff did with Bottas. He wouldn't release Bottas from his contract until he got the drive at Sauber.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Colapinto has overtaken Esteban Ocon
in the championship. They're equal on points, but yeah, because he scored an 8th place, he's ahead on countback.
3 races?
Colapinto 4.
4 races. He's ahead of Bottas, Sargent, Zhou, and Lawson, and Ocon.
Bottas is now P23 in a championship with 20 drivers on the grid at any one time.
And I mean, if he carries on like this, well, Behrman's obviously a sitting duck. Gasly and Magnussen aren't looking terribly safe.
Yeah.
But
there's actually, it gets up until about, well, there's 29 points cover everybody from Hulkenberg back.
Yeah.
Which is across one season. Maybe you can't quite get up to Stroll and Hulkenberg, but 12 points for Ricciardo and Albon.
Yeah.
That's doable, surely.
Actually, he started like in the last quarter of the season and he's only 7 behind his teammate.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, really, I wanted to do this. I know there's going to be like column inches written about Norris and Verstappen.
Yeah.
But there's so many other great stories. Ferrari getting it switched on. Having a brilliant weekend.
How did they do? Double points?
Yeah, Haas had
and 11th for Magnussen. But across the 2 events, 3 out of 4 possible points finishes is quite epic.
Yeah, and a home Grand Prix as well. That must be really nice for them.
They're up to 6th in the championship now. They've got a gap on RB.
But with Lawson at RB, that's going to be a fight to watch over the end.
3 points between Haas and RB.
Williams have gone up to 8th, which I think is really good for them as well, because Alpine have tailed off.
Stake say that they've made progress. They say that they've actually found something that they can kind of move forward with, but
it has not come through yet.
Just kind of hoping that Audi can kind of pull them up with their massive funding.
Yeah, I think it's going to take... Part of the problem is that they're based in Switzerland, apparently.
Yeah, because it's Sauber still.
Yeah, the technology isn't there. Right, I know we're kind of running out of time a bit. I read an article about what Toyota are going to do at Haas, given that they've got Ferrari engines.
Yes.
Toyota have enormous sim experience.
Yes.
So they're going to help Haas build a much better sim in Britain. Because previously all their sims were over in Italy, I think, and they had to keep moving over there or sending drivers over there to use them, which was a huge expense, and the drivers didn't like it, and it didn't mean they could use them. Like Red Bull have been running sims between qualifying and races before now to correct the setup. And they'll be able to do more of that. And the other thing they did, which I didn't even realise was a thing, is a program called TPC,
right,
which is testing previous cars.
Oh.
And a lot of teams run 2-year-old cars that are outside the budget cap, outside the testing regulations, but they can then put interesting parts on them and see how they work. and they can put F2 drivers in them and young up-and-coming drivers in them and test them out.
Yeah.
So, but also what it does is, apparently Haas have enough staff to fill all the roles, and that's it.
Yeah.
So somebody has a baby, they get run over by a bus, they come down with COVID, they're suddenly one member of staff down. But if they've got a TPC program running, they've got like a pit stop manager, they've got a guy who sits on the pit wall, they've got a chief engineer who's not under the budget cap and not part of the Haas team per se, but they damn well know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they can be subbed in as a temp, and if they don't put too many hours in, they stay under the budget cap. But they can be like a temp, basically, or like a locum doctor. They could just sit in for a race or two, and it really enhances their capacity.
Yeah.
So apparently that's two really big things that Toyota can do. Because apparently in Japan, Toyota were getting frustrated because they've got a good World Touring Car program.
Yeah.
But being in the same country as Honda, they were losing a lot of expertise, and a lot of drivers in Japan were going, well, why should we go to you? We'll go to Honda where the F1 experience is.
Yeah, with the powertrains.
Yeah. So now they can say to any prospective employees, whether behind the wheel or in the spanner in their hands, they can say, oh yeah, come over here, we'll get you on the sims, we can put you on the TPC program, we can see how you cope, you can get a feel for F1, and it will kind of enhance their recruitment as a way. So that's what Toyota get out of it, and that's what Haas get out of it.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's a way for Toyota to very, very slowly gear up to a full-time entry if they want. Or to kind of dip their toe in the water.
Certainly, like I say, it'll attract the right people if they want to, or if they want to develop a powertrain.
Yeah. They'll get kind of a toehold in the industry.
Yeah, and they'll get the right people working for them. And
I mean, if Gene Haas ever gives up on F1, they could take over that entry, even.
Yeah, or if they break their relationship with Ferrari, for example.
Yeah, or if they want to take over Andretti's work on getting a new team on the grid.
Yeah, although he's got tied in with Cadillac. So he already has an engine supplier. But yeah, it's definitely... So,
it's
I
interesting.
think everybody looked at that and went, well, they're a Ferrari-powered team. Why have they gone to a Japanese car maker?
But it's
or a
just,
Japanese engine maker?
Yeah, well, they're not taking the engines. They're just kind of taking the expertise.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you an insight into everything that goes around running a Formula One team as well.
Yeah.
I know we're being super geeky now, aren't we?
Yeah. But, yes, next time, Mexico.
Yeah.
I've seen some rumours that almost instantly get shot down by Perez.
Yeah.
That Red Bull are going to announce Perez is out after Mexico.
Yeah. I think they've been flying around for literally 3 or 4 months now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any weight to them because Perez has actually addressed them directly and said, no, I'm staying.
Yeah. It's not like Ricardo.
Well, he knew as well, like his in post-race interviews in Singapore, he was almost crying, Ricardo.
Yeah.
He knew that was his last race and they hadn't done anything.
Yeah. I think it's just like he's a Mexican driver who's struggling. It's a race in Mexico. I think it's more, not wishful thinking, but like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if his last race was in his home race and he could say goodbye to all his fans?
Yeah, I think the commentators have even been talking outright about Lawson being in the Red Bull in 2025, even though technically Perez is under contract next year.
Yeah, and also, you got to bear in mind that there's always question marks over Max's commitment.
Yeah, I said a couple of years ago that it's going to take one really bad year for him to give up. I think, looking at the title picture now, I think he's pretty safe to win it at this point.
Yeah.
Given that, again, that was another race that Norris didn't gain a boatload of points on him. It's getting less and less likely.
And, I mean, I was thinking about this. Even if the stewards made a different decision, or even if he'd managed to get past him, which we can't really see how, or he'd got the start better.
Or if he'd gained 5 seconds in that stint to nullify the penalty.
He'd still be going into the Mexico 51 points behind.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gained that much. He needs to, the number of points he needs to gain per race just goes up every race because he doesn't actually get the points.
He needs a race where he wins and Verstappen is down in the low end of the points or even out of them.
I think he needs 2 of those now.
Yeah,
And that's
probably...
just so unlikely with Verstappen on the form that he is.
To be honest, I'm actually working out the numbers here. To be honest, if Max went on holiday for 2 weeks and Norris won both races, both fastest laps, and a sprint, they'd be about level pegging.
Yeah. I mean, he'd get 26 points, which would be 52. He gained 60 points over the next 2 weekends if he won the sprint in Brazil.
Yeah.
And that would give him a 3-point advantage.
At which point, Verstappen would come back off his holiday going, right, let's do this.
Yeah. But then again, this season has been utter chaos, so it's not actually out of the question that something could happen in the next few races.
No, but I think what we're seeing is Verstappen is laser focused now.
Yeah, now he's actually stepped up, and I mean, you can see that in the deficit to Perez.
Yeah, and the fact that he won the sprint and he was on the podium. He's just like, this needs to be done, and I want to shut it down and get to a point where it's not possible to lose.
So I think he's going to win. But if Red Bull utterly crash and burn next year, which they could do because they don't have Newey anymore,
the
kind of organisational side of Red Bull is falling apart, then I think 2026, if he's not impressed with how they're going to handle the new regs, he might just call it quits then, to be honest.
I think if he does, I think it's very likely that Lawrence Stroll, I'll get that right for once, will offer him more money than, there is on Earth.
Yeah, more money than the GDP of a small country.
Plus the fact that Adrian Newey is working in brand new facilities with a brand new wind tunnel.
Yeah.
He'll probably put either Alonso into a Halo ambassador role or put Stroll out to WEC, depending on what Max wants.
God, can you imagine an Alonso-Verstappen pairing, though?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's quite terrifying, almost.
Yeah.
In terms of pace for the other teams, but also in terms of inter-team relations.
I think the egos would just clash massively.
Well, yeah.
Right, I'm looking at the time. We've actually heading
about an hour.
Now.
Yeah.
Right, I want to say 2 things very quickly. One, we've got 16 different nationalities on a grid of 20, which is probably the most diverse it's ever been.
Probably?
I think there have been, in the 70s, more nationalities on the grid, but that's when you had like 24 drivers and pre-qualifying and stuff.
I can look into that.
Yeah, but I think like 80% of the grid coming from different countries is quite special.
Yes, that is cool.
And the other thing is, McLaren lost their mini DRS flexible rear wing.
You think that's affected their pace?
Looking at race result, 4th and 5th. Yes, I do.
What, from 1st and 3rd?
Yeah.
And then a 1st and a 4th, and then a 2nd and a 3rd.
And not just a 1st, but a 1st where they were leading Verstappen by 15 to 20 seconds.
Hang on a sec, let me just scan through this. You're saying the first time since Spain that neither of them have been on the podium has affected their pace slightly.
I know everybody always points fingers at Red Bull and goes, oh, they're cheating, they've got this ride height thing, they've got that thing. And I think it's just fair to highlight the fact that McLaren do exactly the same and they've got caught and now their performance has dropped off.
Well, Hamilton said the leaders are the ones who innovate and push the boundaries.
I think cheating is the wrong word. I think they found a loophole and exploited it and it got close.
Just, it's happened literally since the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
The first front wings and ground effect were exactly the same. It's in the lifeblood of F1.
Oh, God, yeah. It's not cheating. But
double stacked rear diffusers and the triple pedals and the DAS. It's just how it is.
Yeah. So, McLaren had an innovation that was outside the rules and now they're losing performance.
Also, Ferrari were the only team not to bring any upgrades. And they were massively faster than everybody else, which is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, but I think that's the track. Anyway, we've been waffling for a long time. It's a very exciting race.
We've got Mexico next.
Mexico next, yep.
Yes, in a week.
And that's next week, so we're doing it really quite quick.
Yeah, we're getting on with it.
I'm Graham Miller. If you want a good mystery thriller, sorry, people are WhatsApping while I'm doing this. If you want a good mystery thriller, Google search or any search engine Graham H. Miller and you'll find me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know about Official Toby. Otherwise, give him a look, because that's Toby's channel. And we'll talk to you probably in a week, because we've got a triple header.
Yep.
So, thank you and goodbye.
Bye.